Hello and welcome to another episode of Trojanpear's Book Club. This is our inaugural book club launch for 2017, and as I hope to have the most ambitious year yet for reading, it's going to heavily be relied upon this series that I go on. The first book that I will be looking at as I start this will be the Harry Potter and the Cursed Child book that came out just this past year. That's going to be what I'm reading this week. Obviously, I haven't read it yet, so we're not going to do that. Instead, what I'm going to do is preview that by doing the first 7 books of the Harry Potter series. You have the first book, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Second book, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. The third book, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, the fourth one. Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, which is the fifth one. Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, the sixth one. And the seventh one, which was the last one of the original series, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. All 7 of these books I have read, and at different points in time, and I'll talk a little bit about the history of it in just a second. But if you are not familiar with Harry Potter, I don't know where you've been. It's not only been a very famous book series, it has also been a very famous movie series as well. So maybe you've heard of it but never have read it or watched it or even gotten into it. This is a good opportunity to get into this, just to preview it. I will read, as I always do, the little explanation about the series on the back. It says, Harry Potter has never played a sport while flying on a broomstick. He's never worn a dark cloak of invisibility, befriended a giant, or helped hatch a dragon. All Harry knows is a miserable life with the Dursleys, his horrible aunt and uncle, and their abominable son, Dudley. Harry's room is a tiny closet at the foot of the stairs, and he hasn't had a birthday party in 11 years. But all that is about to change when a mysterious letter arrives by owl messenger. A letter with an invitation to a wonderful place he never dreamed existed. There he finds not only friends, aerial sports, and magic around every corner, but a great destiny that's been waiting for him, if Harry can survive the encounter. So this is the first one. I got this book several years ago when I guess I was maybe high school, possibly early high school years, maybe even a little bit before that. My second grade teacher, who I kept up with, actually gave it to me as a Christmas present, and I never had heard of it. And by that point, the first 3 books had already been released. So I was not all that interested when I got it, but then I read it and I was hooked. It was wonderful. It was a very good book. And then, of course, I find out that this is listed as year 1, which means that they basically spend 7 years in school. So I thought, man, it must be 7 books for the years of school, which it is actually. So soon after, we got the second book, The Chamber of Secrets, very similar in style to the first one, which was great. I love this one too. It was a little bit bigger, but about the same, and I enjoyed that one thoroughly. Then I got the third one, Prisoner of Azkaban, and this one was even better than the first 2. It was a little bit bigger, but it had the same style. I loved this book, and by this time, the fourth one had come out, and so I started reading that one. This one kind of is a transitional book. It goes from the first three, it kind of stays in that mode for the most part, but then it really starts getting set up for the rest of the books in the series, where certain events will happen that'll get you ready for that. And the continuation is much more evident and necessary in this book than it was in the first three, even. So, when I read this, or in the process of reading it, my sister, Trojanpear, had started reading the books as well, and she was enjoying them too. So both of us were caught up at about the first four books, and then when the fifth book came out, we both wanted to read it. So we actually had one book for each person, and we began what was known as the reading wars to see who could finish the book first. And tell you something about my sister, she is a very active reader, much more so than I ever have been. Early on in my, when I was a really young child, I read tons of the children's books and even some of the young adult books. But as I've gotten older, I really haven't had the kind of time and spent that much effort in reading it. But my sister, while she didn't do that much reading when she was younger, in the more recent years became a very active reader. And so she would read books in just no time. She'd be done. And of course, works in the library now, so she reads all the time. So she's much better at it than I am. So when we started, both at the same time, excitement level was high, and she was clearly ahead of me. However, as the course of events go on, this is a very dark, and the tone is very different than the other books. And there's anger and sadness and different things. And I guess she kind of started getting turned off a little bit in this book, so I actually caught up to her and finished it well before her, because it took her like a year eventually to get back into it. She had stopped reading it for like a year. It was a very difficult book as far as the ending and the tone, but she did get it finished. And when we got the sixth book, The Half-Blood Prince, I got it, and she said, "You go ahead and read it. I'm not too interested in reading right now." And so I did, and as I read it, I had to tell her, "You really need to get into this one. This one really redeems itself from the last one. In fact, it's one of the better ones, because the tone kind of starts going similar more towards the first three, although there still is that progressive nature that you had in the fourth and the fifth books. But it's much more acceptable at this point. I don't know. But it was really good, and she agreed with me about, that one was much better. So it got us both ready to read the last book, which, of course, I also read before her. But, we both had the same opinions about it for the most part. And we highly enjoyed it. Ending is a little... The last book gets kind of long in places, but it's a good book. My ranking on these overall books, however, varies differently from the movies. The movies started coming out, I think, around the fourth or the fifth book, somewhere around there. And the opinion of which movie is which really depends upon how they were translated from the books and whatnot. But the books themselves have a totally different tone. And I would say it is very difficult, because so many of these books, really all of them, are really good. But I would have to say that the Order of the Phoenix is probably ranked 7th, because, again, the tone as such was just different from the others, and it was not, it was just not as well liked by me or my sister for that point. So, yeah, definitely that one's seventh. But then the rest of them, you kind of clump into categories because it just depends on preference. And, if somebody wanted to say this one was better or that one, I really couldn't argue too much. It's basically personal preference, and they're all really good. So, what I said, um, I went with the other one that was kind of transitional was Goblet of Fire as number 6 because, again, this is one that they do take in a bit of a different direction. It starts towards that different level. There is some hard-hitting things that occur in this book as well, but not as much as the others. Certain things I didn't love about that book. Those two are kind of the awkward books in the series because there is still a lot of those middle years, kind of like adolescence, I guess, that you have some of those deals. But that's what I'd say 6. Now 5th, the last one, which some people may probably have liked this one the best, but I just give it 5 overall because it was kind of long and you're trying to do an awful lot of stuff in one book. Grant you, it's not quite as long, I don't think, as Order of the Phoenix, but it is still really long. So it does conclude things pretty nicely. It was very good. But I would say, like, if you do the movie is actually better, the second part anyway of the movie, because the vision and the action and what and all that is kind of there, whereas this is kind of downplayed just a little bit because of you don't have the production value and whatnot. You have to use your imagination. Although other books seem to do better than the movies too. So, but that's one where the movies actually did a really good job of capitalizing on the book. Now, my top 4, these are the best of the best, in my opinion, right here. I would have to say that Chamber of Secrets is number 4. Very similar to the first one, but I don't know. I guess because the first one was more, it was new, and some of the things that happened at the time were fresher. That just kind of gives it a tiebreaker, and of course that's why it's number 3. Both very similar, but because this one was the first one, it was the one that just like, I can't believe this book is this good, and it was the surprise. You expected it from this book, you didn't so much from this one, and it was funny. It was sad. Not this one so much, but this entire series. These early books were very funny to me. You kind of lost that a little bit more in later editions, but it takes a lot for a book to draw emotion out of me. The sadness is a little bit easier, but the excitement and the laughter, and especially laughter, is very hard for books that try to be funny to make me laugh. This book did that, and this book I think was very much the same way. But this book definitely did that, and I always remember that in books that draw that out. Number 2 is one that had a similar effect, Half-Blood Prince. This one, to be honest, you could almost say this one's number 1. It's very close because this one draws out so many of the emotions. Because this one's kind of more children's type. It's more childlike, more innocent, and then as you progress, you start becoming a little more adult. But this one maintains that sort of old style that this one was utilizing, but yet it still has that sort of mature level to it, where Some characters are gone, die, and major character in this one dies, in fact. And it doesn't ruin the book, you know. And I think part of that is the transitioning of the other books. Some of the stuff that happens there kind of braces you for something like that. But what's really great about this is it's funny again, but more so, one of the things that I predicted back in the very beginning, I said, this is going to eventually happen. You know, they played around with different things in the different books, but then when you find out who the main character has feelings for, remembering my reaction to that when I start reading about what he thought about this person, I was like, oh my God. It was exciting to me to know, oh, I got it right, you know. So I love that about it. It was just so fun to read that one. That's why number one, though, is my favorite, because it encompasses all that. But it is a little bit less sad because you don't have like a main character killed off in it. It's a lot of similarities to the first two books, but it goes in its own direction. And one of the great things is it's a twist of a story plot. You know, if you read the plot about it, you think that things are going to happen a certain way in this, like they did in the first two. But then something happens in the process of it that you find out, oh, this character is not what we thought he was, and it's actually this, and it totally changes things around. And to be honest, if the series ended with this book, it would actually be a pretty decent ending, because obviously you could. Once you get to the fourth one, then you have to go all the way to the seventh one. But this was just always my favorite. With all the different characters that they added to it, I really liked a lot of the ones that were in there. And so this was the best one to me. If you continue it, this one is second best, but hey, you know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on which books were your favorites, ones you didn't like as much, if you have any thoughts or comments on that. But that's all I'm going to do today. We're getting a little long on it. I want to keep it under 20 minutes. And so next week we will talk about the new Harry Potter book and what my thoughts are on that. Until then, keep on reading, Readosaurus. Blessings. Bye-bye.